Welcome to Exposed and Broken YouTube channel. We uncover the secrets of love, betrayal, and the choices that change everything.
Chapter 1, The Discovery. I always thought heartbreak would feel like a slow, dull ache, like a bruise you press on over and over just to remind yourself it's there. But when it happened to me, it was more like a car crash. Sudden, violent, and so loud inside my head that I couldn't hear anything else. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were always the most boring day of the week, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone, half watching the rain slide down the window. The house was too quiet. My wife, Anna, was out. She said she had a late cleaning job, and I believed her. I always believed her. Until I didn't. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the way she'd been acting lately, distant, distracted, her phone always glued to her hand. Or maybe it was just boredom, the kind that makes you do stupid things. I picked up her laptop, the one she always left on the counter, and opened it. No password. She never bothered. I guess she trusted me, too. I wish she hadn't. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe a sign that everything was okay. Maybe a sign that it wasn't. I opened her browser and there it was, Reddit, logged in as Clean Queen Anna. I clicked, and the world as I knew it ended. The posts were all there in black and white, like a punch to the gut. Detailed descriptions of what happened when she was with him. Her AP, as she called him. Affair partner. I'd never heard the term before, but I understood it instantly. My hands started to shake. My heart pounded, so hard I thought it might burst. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just kept reading, even though every word felt like a knife. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember grabbing my phone. But suddenly I was on Facebook, my fingers flying across the screen, typing out a post for all our friends and family to see. I shared her posts. I wanted everyone to know. I wanted her to hurt like I was hurting. The notifications started pouring in. Likes, comments, shocked emojis. My phone buzzed nonstop. I didn't care. I was on fire, burning from the inside out. Next, I found her family's email addresses, her mother, her sisters, her cousins in Brazil. I sent them everything. I told them what she'd done. I told them it was nice knowing them. I didn't know if they'd even read it, but it didn't matter. I just needed to do something, anything, to make the pain stop. She owned a cleaning business, Anna Sparkle. I left reviews online, sharing what she had done. I didn't care if it was petty. I didn't care if it was cruel. I wanted the world to know. Then I called her. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful. She was with him. I could hear his voice in the background, low and smug. I told her to leave. I told her never to come back. I don't remember what I said exactly, but I remember the way my voice sounded. Raw, broken, like someone else was speaking through me. She came home only to get her laptop, the one that had betrayed her. When she walked through the door, she tried to explain, but I didn't let her get a single word in. I just kept screaming, "Get the fuck out of my life and don't come back." My voice echoed off the walls, bouncing back at me, ugly and unfamiliar. The next part I'm ashamed of. I went around the house smashing all of her things. Her favorite mug, the picture frames, the stupid little souvenirs she'd collected over the years. I tore through drawers, appended closets, threw her clothes out the window. I was filled with anguish and rage, a storm I couldn't control. I'd never been a violent person. I'd never even raised my voice to her, not in 14 years. But that day, I was someone else. I found $3,000 in cash hidden in a shoebox at the back of the closet. I kept it. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hurt her. Maybe I just wanted something to hold on to. When she came back with a friend to get her stuff, the house was a disaster. Her things were scattered everywhere, broken and battered. The only kind thing I did was only take half of our joint savings account before I called her. I could have taken it all. I almost did. None of it made me feel good. Not the Facebook post, not the emails, not the reviews, not the screaming, not the destruction. The whole situation was absolutely terrible, and 9 months later, I was still recovering. But that was just the beginning. The morning after felt like waking up in a stranger's house. The kitchen was trashed, shards of Anna's favorite mug glinting on the floor, a trail of her clothes leading to the front door, the air thick with the sour smell of spilled perfume and rage. I sat at the table, staring at the mess, my hands still trembling. My phone buzzed every few seconds, but I couldn't bring myself to look. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, replaying everything in my mind, over and over, like a movie I couldn't turn off. The look on Anna's face when she walked in, shock, then fear, then something else. Pity maybe, or guilt. I didn't care. I didn't want to care. By noon, the messages started to pile up. Friends, family, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some were angry. How could I air our dirty laundry like that? Others were supportive, offering words of comfort, promises of revenge, or just a listening ear. My mother called 3 times. I let it go to voicemail. I finally checked my email. Anna's sister had written back, a long message in Portuguese that I had to run through Google Translate. She was furious, at Anna, at me, at the world. She said she'd always known something was wrong, that Anna was never satisfied, never happy. She said she was sorry. I didn't reply. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the house, sweeping up the broken pieces, stuffing Anna's things into garbage bags. Every object felt like a memory. Her old sneakers, the scarf she wore on our first trip to the mountains, the book she read every night before bed. I wanted to throw it all away, but I couldn't. Not yet. That night, I sat on the porch with a bottle of whiskey, watching the rain. The world felt empty, hollowed out. I thought about calling someone, my brother, maybe, or my best friend from college. But what would I say? That my life was over? That I didn't know who I was anymore? Instead, I scrolled through Anna's Reddit posts again, reading every word, every comment. People online were so quick to judge, so eager to offer advice. Leave him, they said. You deserve better. He sounds controlling. You're so brave. I wanted to scream at them, to tell them they didn't know anything. But I didn't. I just kept reading, letting the words wash over me like poison. At some point, I must have fallen asleep, because I woke up to the sound of birds and the ache of a hangover. The world was still there, still broken, but the sun was shining. I stood up, stretched, and tried to remember how to breathe. That's when the doorbell rang. I froze. For a second, I thought it might be Anna, come to beg for forgiveness, to explain, to lie. But when I opened the door, it was my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, holding a plate of cookies and a worried smile. I heard some noise last night, she said gently. Are you all right? I wanted to say no. I wanted to collapse into her arms and sob like a child. But instead, I nodded, took the cookies, and thanked her. She patted my arm, her eyes full of sympathy, and left. I sat back down at the table, the plate of cookies untouched. I stared at the mess, at the empty chair across from me, and realized I had a choice. I could let this destroy me, or I could try to put myself back together. I didn't know how, but I knew I had to try. The days blurred together after that. I moved through them like a ghost, haunted by memories and what-ifs. The house was quieter than ever, every creak and groan a reminder of what I'd lost. I tried to keep busy, cleaning, fixing things that didn't need fixing, organizing drawers that hadn't been touched in years. But no matter how much I scrubbed, I couldn't wash away the ache inside me. On the 3rd day, my brother, Mark, showed up unannounced. He let himself in, as he always did, and found me sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by piles of Anna's things. Jesus, man, he said, surveying the chaos. You look like hell. I tried to laugh, but it came out as a croak. Mark sat down beside me, picking up a photo of Anna and me at the beach, both of us grinning, sunburned and happy. He turned it over in his hands, then set it aside. You want to talk about it? He asked. I shook my head. I didn't have the words. How could I explain the way my heart felt? Shredded, raw, barely beating. Mark didn't push. He just sat with me, silent and steady, the way he always had when we were kids, and I'd scrape my knee or lost a game. After a while, he stood up and started gathering Anna's things, folding clothes, stacking books, making neat piles where there had been only chaos. We'll box this up, he said. Put it in the garage. Out of sight, out of mind. I nodded, grateful for something to do. We worked in silence, the rhythm of packing soothing in its own way. When we were done, the living room looked almost normal again. Empty, but clean. Mark clapped me on the shoulder. You need to get out of here, he said. Come stay with me for a few days. Clear your head. I almost said no. The thought of leaving the house, of facing the world, was terrifying. But then I looked around at the empty rooms, the echo of Anna's laughter still lingering in the corners, and I realized he was right. Okay, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Okay. We packed a bag, just the essentials, nothing that reminded me of her. Mark drove, the radio playing softly, the city passing by in a blur. I stared out the window, watching the world go on as if nothing had changed. At his apartment, Mark handed me a beer and turned on the game. We didn't talk about Anna. We didn't talk about the mess I'd made. We just sat side by side, letting the noise and the normalcy wash over us. That night, I lay awake on his lumpy couch, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in days, I let myself cry. Silent, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the life I'd lost, for the man I used to be, for the future that had vanished in an instant. But when the tears finally stopped, I felt lighter. Not healed, not whole, but lighter. Like maybe, just maybe I could survive this. The next morning, Mark made pancakes, burnt, but edible. He handed me a plate and grinned. Today's a new day, he said. Let's see what you do with it. I smiled, a real smile, for the first time in weeks. Maybe he was right. Maybe today could be the first step towards something new. Mark's apartment was a safe haven, but after 3 days, I started to feel like a guest in my own life. I needed to do something, anything, to keep from sinking back into the quicksand of my thoughts. Mark noticed. He always did. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen table, poking at a bowl of cereal, he slid a flyer across the table. It was for a local support group. Rebuilding after betrayal, weekly meetings, all welcome. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. The idea of sitting in a circle, sharing my pain with strangers, sounded like torture. But Mark just shrugged. You don't have to talk. Just listen. Sometimes it helps. That night, I found myself in a church basement, surrounded by folding chairs and the smell of burnt coffee. The group was small, maybe a dozen people, all shapes and ages, each carrying their own invisible wounds. The leader, a woman named Carla, welcomed me with a warm smile and a gentle handshake. We're glad you're here, she said, and for a moment, I almost believed her. I sat in the back, arms crossed, heart pounding. The story started. One by one, people shared their heartbreak, their anger, their confusion. There was a woman whose husband had left her for his high school sweetheart, a man whose wife had emptied their bank account and disappeared, a young guy who'd found out his girlfriend was cheating through a group text. Their pain was raw, but there was laughter, too, dark, bitter, but real. Jokes about bad dates, about awkward run-ins at the grocery store, about the ridiculous things people do when their hearts are broken. I found myself smiling, then laughing, the sound strange and unfamiliar in my own mouth. When it was my turn, I hesitated. My story felt too fresh, too jagged to share. But Carla just nodded, her eyes kind. You don't have to talk, she said. Just being here is enough. After the meeting, a man named Greg approached me. He was older, with a thick beard and kind eyes. First time's the hardest, he said. But it gets better. You'll see. We talked for a while, about nothing and everything. He told me about his divorce, about the anger that had nearly consumed him, about the slow, painful process of letting go. He didn't offer advice, just understanding. It was enough. When I left, the night air felt different, cooler, cleaner. I walked back to Mark's apartment, my steps lighter than they'd been in weeks. That night, I slept without dreaming. The next morning, I called my mother. I let her talk, let her fuss, let her tell me that I was strong, that I would get through this. For the first time, I believed her. I started going to the support group every week. I listened, I laughed, I cried. Eventually, I shared my story, the whole messy, painful truth. No one judged me. No one told me what I should have done. They just listened. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Not the same as before, maybe never the same, but someone new, someone stronger. And for the first time, I started to wonder what my life could look like now that I was free to write my own story. Spring crept in quietly, softening the edges of winter's gloom. I found myself walking more, letting the city's pulse fill the silence that still lingered inside me. The support group had become a lifeline, a place where I could be honest, even if I was still learning what honesty meant. One Saturday, I decided to visit the old farmer's market downtown. Anna and I used to go every month, but I hadn't been back since she left. The thought of running into someone we knew made my stomach twist, but I needed to prove to myself that I could reclaim the places we'd shared. The market was alive with color and noise, vendors shouting, children laughing, the smell of fresh bread and coffee in the air. I wandered past stalls of flowers and fruit, letting the crowd carry me along. For a moment, I almost felt normal. That's when I saw her. Anna stood at a booth, her hair pulled back, sunglasses perched on her head. She was laughing at something the vendor said, her hand resting lightly on the arm of a man I didn't recognize. My heart stuttered, then raced. I froze, caught between the urge to run and the need to stand my ground. She hadn't seen me yet. I watched her, feeling a strange mix of anger, sadness, and something like relief. She looked happy, or at least she looked like someone trying to be happy. The man with her, tall, dark-haired, confident, must have been the AP, the infamous affair partner. I felt a surge of bitterness, but it faded quickly, replaced by a tired resignation. This was her life now. This was mine. I turned to leave, but Anna spotted me. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the noise of the market fading into the background. She looked away first, her smile faltering, her hand dropping from the man's arm. I could have walked away. I almost did. But something in her eyes, regret, maybe, or just the weight of everything unsaid, made me pause. I walked over, my heart pounding. The man looked at me, sizing me up, but Anna spoke first. "Hi," she said, her voice small. "Hi," I replied, surprised at how steady I sounded. There was a long, awkward silence. The man shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Anna glanced at him, then back at me. "I'm glad you're okay," she said finally. I nodded. "I am. Or I'm getting there." She smiled, a sad, tired smile. "Good." I looked at the man, then back at Anna. "Take care of yourself," I said. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something close. She nodded, her eyes shining. "You too." I walked away, my hands shaking, but my heart lighter than it had been in months. I'd faced her. I'd survived. I'd let go just a little. Back at the support group that week, I told them what happened. Greg clapped me on the back, Carla smiled, and the others listened, understanding in their eyes. "That's a big step," Greg said. "You should be proud." For the first time, That night, I sat on my porch, watching the stars blink into existence. The world felt wide open, full of possibility. I didn't know what would come next, but I was ready to find out. The days after seeing Anna at the market felt different. Something had shifted inside me, a knot loosened, a weight lifted. I still woke up some mornings with a hollow ache, but it was softer now, less sharp. I started to notice things I'd ignored for months. The way sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, the taste of fresh coffee, the sound of birds outside my window. One evening, after a support group meeting, Carla caught up with me in the parking lot. She was always the last to leave, making sure everyone had a ride, a kind word, a reason to come back. "You're doing better," she said, leaning against her car. "I can see it." I shrugged, embarrassed. "Some days are easier than others." She smiled. "That's how it goes. Listen, a few of us are getting together this weekend. Nothing fancy, just dinner and bad karaoke. You should come." I hesitated. The idea of socializing, of being around people who weren't defined by heartbreak, was both thrilling and terrifying. But Carla's eyes were warm, her invitation genuine. "Yeah," I said, surprising myself. "I'd like that." Saturday night, I found myself at a cozy little restaurant on the edge of town. The place was packed, the air thick with laughter and the smell of garlic. Carla waved me over to a table where a handful of familiar faces from the group were already gathered. Greg was there, along with a few others I'd only spoken to in passing. We sat together on the porch, the night air cool and still. After a while, Julia reached for my hand, her fingers warm against mine. "You know what I do when I get stuck," she said. "I write it down. All the ugly, messy feelings. Sometimes it helps to get it out of my head." I thought about that later after she'd gone home. I found an old notebook and started to write about Anna, about the pain, about the hope I was afraid to feel. The words came slowly at first, then faster, pouring out in a rush. When I finished, I felt lighter, as if I'd set down a burden I'd been carrying for too long. The next time I saw Julia, I thanked her. She smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "See, you're stronger than you think." Our friendship deepened, the trust between us growing with each shared secret, each moment of vulnerability. We started to make new memories, picnics in the park, movie nights, spontaneous road trips to nowhere in particular. There were setbacks, of course, days when the past felt too heavy, when old wounds reopened. But there were breakthroughs, too, moments of laughter, of connection, of genuine joy. One evening, as we watched the sun set over the river, Julia turned to me, her expression serious. "Do you ever think about starting over?" she asked. "Not just moving on, but really starting fresh?" I considered her question, the possibilities it held. For the first time, I realized I wasn't afraid of the answer. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady. "I think I'm ready." Julia smiled, her hand finding mine. Together, we watched the last light fade from the sky, the future wide open before us. Spring melted into summer, and with it came a sense of possibility I hadn't felt in years. The world seemed brighter, the days longer, the air thick with the scent of cut grass and blooming flowers. Julia and I spent more time together, our friendship deepening into something neither of us dared to name just yet. One Saturday, Julia showed up at my door with a mischievous grin and a folded map. "Road trip," she announced, waving the map like a flag. "No plans, no destination. Just you, me, and the open road." I hesitated, old anxieties bubbling up. I'd always been the planner, the one who needed to know where we were going and how we'd get there. But Julia's excitement was infectious, and something inside me, something that had been dormant for too long, stirred awake. "Let's do it," I said, surprising us both. We packed a bag with snacks, water, and a playlist of our favorite songs. Julia insisted on driving, her hair whipping in the wind as we sped down country roads, the city shrinking in the rearview mirror. We stopped at roadside diners, took photos with giant fiberglass animals, and laughed until our sides ached. Somewhere along the way, we found a lake, quiet, hidden, the water sparkling in the afternoon sun. We kicked off our shoes and waded in, the cool water a shock against our skin. Julia splashed me, her laughter ringing out across the water, and for a moment I felt weightless, free from the past, from regret, from fear. As the sun dipped low, we sat on the shore, our feet dangling in the water. Julia leaned her head on my shoulder, her hair damp and tangled. "Do you ever think about what you want now?" she asked quietly. "Not what you lost, but what you want to find." I thought about it, the question settling deep in my chest. For so long, my life had been defined by what I'd lost. Anna, our marriage, the future I'd imagined. But now, sitting beside Julia, the world wide open before us, I realized I wanted more than just survival. I wanted joy. I wanted adventure. I wanted to build something new. "I want to be brave," I said, the words surprising me with their honesty. "I want to stop looking back." Julia smiled, her eyes shining in the fading light. "Then let's be brave together." We drove home that night with the windows down, the air warm and sweet. Julia sang along to the radio, her voice off-key but full of life. I joined in, our laughter mingling with the music, the miles slipping away behind us. Back in the city, we sat in the car for a long moment, neither of us wanting the night to end. Julia reached over, her hand finding mine. "Thank you," she whispered. for taking a chance. I squeezed her hand, my heart full. Thank you for giving me one. As I watched her walk up the steps to her apartment, I realized I wasn't just moving on, I was moving forward. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, I was excited to see where it would lead. Summer faded into autumn, the leaves turning gold and crimson, the air crisp with promise. Life settled into a new rhythm. Work, support group, quiet evenings with Julia, laughter echoing through rooms that once felt empty. The pain of the past was still there, a scar beneath the surface, but it no longer defined me. It was just a part of my story, not the whole of it. Julia and I grew closer, our friendship blossoming into something deeper, steadier. We didn't rush it. We let it unfold, day by day, learning each other's rhythms, fears, and dreams. There were still hard days, moments when old wounds ached, when doubts crept in. But we faced them together, honest and unafraid. One evening, as the first chill of fall crept in, Julia invited me to her apartment for dinner. She'd cooked a simple meal, pasta, salad, a bottle of red wine. We ate by candlelight, the city glowing outside her window. After dinner, we sat on her tiny balcony, wrapped in blankets, watching the world go by. Julia leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked, her voice soft. I smiled, thinking of all the nights I'd spent dreading that very question. But now, with Julia beside me, the future felt less like a threat and more like an adventure. "I do," I said. "I think about a lot of things. Traveling, maybe getting a dog, writing more, just living." Julia laughed, her breath warm against my neck. I liked the sound of that. We sat in comfortable silence, the city humming below us. I thought about everything that had brought me here, the heartbreak, the anger, the nights spent lost and alone. I thought about the support group, about Mark and Carla and Greg, about the kindness of strangers and the strength I'd found in myself. I realized I was grateful, not for the pain, but for the way it had forced me to grow, to change, to open myself to new possibilities. I was grateful for Julia, for her patience and her laughter, for the way she saw me, not as someone broken, but as someone becoming. As the night deepened, Julia turned to me, her eyes shining. "Let's make a promise," she said. "No more looking back, only forward." I took her hand, the warmth of her fingers grounding me. "Forward," I agreed. We sealed the promise with a kiss, gentle and sure, the kind that spoke of hope and second chances. In that moment, I knew I was ready. Ready to let go of the past, to embrace the unknown, to write the next chapter of my life. Not alone, but with someone who understood the beauty of starting over. The future stretched out before us, wide and wild and full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. Please like and subscribe to support me. I've been deeply affected by infidelity, and your support means the world to me. Watch Exposed and Broken to help me rebuild my life, maybe even buy a house one day. Thank you and see you soon.